rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. That's right, it's Saturday night. And, I changed the background just for everybody to know, because it is storming like Norman, outside right now. It is raining and windy, so do not be surprised, just to warn you ahead of time, if sometime in the next hour and a half I end up losing power to the studio. I mean, it's not that windy, but it could happen. So just be prepared. That's all I'm going to say. Be prepared. If I drop off, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm probably not going to come back. Unless things, are just a short little blip or whatever. But, all right, folks, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight's headline sponsor. Yeah. Coco, insert name here, says, oh no, dumb storms. Yes, it happens a lot to us in October and November, end of October, early November. In fact, in November, we have this thing, depending upon where the jet stream goes, we have this thing that's known as the Pineapple Express. And that's kind of what we're in right now, which basically what happens is the jet stream changes direction and it brings hot, moist air out of the tropics and pulls them up and pulls it up into the northwest and creates a situation like we've been in for the last 24 hours, which is just bands of rain over and over and over again. In fact, people to the south of me, they have like flood warnings and things like that going on. We're not. We're on the upper northern edge, I think, of the band, but yeah. Anyway, got a lot of rain. We've been getting a lot of rain here recently, so. Anyway, just within the last 24 hours. And like I said, the wind is supposed to go until 5 a.m., I think, tomorrow morning. So we'll just have to see what the heck happens. But anyway, I digress. Enough about the weather. Let's talk about me. No, I'm just kidding. Let's move on. Tonight, we have G. I haven't seen Ms. T or G in the chat yet. So tonight is G. G is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with G as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And of course, I thank you, G, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file that is, and attach it to an email. You can send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. If you do it on your phone, apparently you can hit the share button, and you can share it to fans at americanperspective.online. I'm looking for number 21. And of course, following right after that, I'll be looking for number 22. So, hey, two of you, just get it done. Send it in. There you go. And we'll go ahead and get you into the rotation as soon as possible. All right. Well, tonight, no surprise, 4 Roses, single barrel, is in the glass. It is in the fantastic one half of a set that was sent to me by the fantastic Whiskey Warriors There it is. It says, it takes stones to drink with whiskey, and there are the requisite stones in the bottom of the glass right here. And yeah, 3 Chevy says, Yoda says, drink with whiskey you will? Then stones you must have. Hmm? Anyway. All right. Woo. Smooth. Anyway. Okay, let's go ahead and get the headline sponsor going here. Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government, as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect these God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up, and while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Each purchase of the aforementioned book will cause a liberal to have digestive dysfunction and or gastrointestinal issues. Yes, that's from 3 Chevy, by the way. Take a look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And there's no cheap glue here, folks. This is stitched all the way through the leather and the pages that are contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if a problem does happen with this thing, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is, rest in peace, my friend, buddy tested, buddy approved. Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in Scouts. It will also help you study for your civics exam, if you even have one, or possibly even your naturalization test. Go for it. So go and check it out. Go and get it at constitution.americanperspective.online. And get yours today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's fantastic offerings. I thank them for allowing me to be a brand affiliate. All right. Well, I'm not going to forget. Nana's not here. Nana's not giving me the code. The unofficial producer code saying, hey, don't forget, blah, blah, blah. And no, blah, blah, blah does not mean that I'm like dismissing her. I'm just saying the blah, blah, blah changes depending upon what's going on there. 3 Chevy jumps in. Yep, 3 Chevy jumps in. All right, let's go ahead and get to tonight's first segment, which is, of course, On This Day in American History. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. Chock full of all kinds of little factoids. That's chalk, not shock, but chalk. Chock full. There we go. Finally got it right. Chock full of all kinds of little factoids and information. Look, we're almost done. We're getting there. We're almost done with the whole thing. So, there we go. All right. Tonight hey, ladies, you might want to pay attention because a lot of people don't recognize this particular event. And I got to tell you, the ladies, everybody talks about the men, the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence who, risk their lives, their fortunes, their families, all for this country. Well, they don't mention the women very often. So here we go. We're going to mention the women tonight. We're going to be talking about the Edmonton Tea Party. On October 25th, 1774, one of the first organized political actions by American women occurred in the town of Edenton, North Carolina, when 51 ladies gathered at the home of Mrs. Elizabeth King and signed a proclamation protesting the British tax on tea. Led by Penelope Barker, the Patriots vowed to support resolves by the provincial deputies of North Carolina to boycott, quote, the pernicious custom of drinking tea and avoid British-made cloth until the tax was repealed. The ladies of Edenton signed a resolution declaring that we cannot be indifferent on any occasion that appears nearly to affect the peace and happiness of our country. The boycott was, they declared, a duty that we owe, not only to our near and dear connections, but to ourselves. It was a bold move in a time when it was considered unladylike for women to get involved in political matters. Unlike the participants of the famous Boston Tea Party, the Edenton women did not disguise themselves in costumes, but openly signed their names to their declaration as a witness of our fixed intention and solemn determination. At first, the British sneered at the Edenton Tea Party. One Englishman wrote sarcastically, "The only security on our side is the probability that there are but a few places in America which possess so much female artillery as in Edenton." They soon discovered otherwise. And that is today's On This Day in American History. So, one of the first political actions done by the American women pre-Revolutionary War. Then, of course, everybody learns about the Boston Tea Party, which is actually, we've talked about that on this program in terms of the Boston Tea Party. They actually didn't do British tea. It was actually tea that was sent from China, and it was tossed overboard. And believe it or not, it was from American ships. It was American shippers, not British shippers, that did that. But they dressed themselves up as Native Americans to try and throw people off of the scent of who was actually there and did it. But anyway, and all of that, believe it or not, over something like a 2% tax. Just imagine what the founding fathers would look at today with our progressive tax system on income, which, by the way, that was something that the founders didn't want either, which is part of the reason why they kept saying excise taxes and things like that. Income was not taxed in America until the 16th Amendment was ratified in this country many, many years later. 16th out of 27. So obviously that happened after the Civil War happened, where the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed right after the Civil War. So, our country has come so far from our renegade roots. It's not even something to joke at or even laugh about, to be completely honest. Speaking of female power, I wish we could get rid of her. And by get rid of her, I mean get rid of her out of public life. I wish she would just disappear. I wish that she would just go away. I wish that she would never grace her face onto the public platform ever again. But apparently we're never going to be rid of her at all. Who am I talking about? Well, talking about none other than Kamala, or Kamala, however you want to pronounce it, because I really don't care, Harris. And apparently she has not ruled out running for president again somewhere. Okay, let's face it. She didn't actually come out and say she had no, she had no aspirations to get there. She didn't come out and actually say any of that at all. No, she just said, I am not done, in this interview with the BBC. So, she had this interview, and I just got to say, she just needs to go away. I'm sorry. But she was speaking to Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg. I think that's how it's pronounced. Kuenssberg. Harris also turned her fire on her former rival, branding Trump as a tyrant, said that the warnings she made about him on the campaign trail have been proved right. She also spent some time saying that, I really didn't have a great chance to beat him because I was only given 107 days. That's not very long. Yeah. Anyway, she did, the interviewer, Laura did ask, will we ever see a woman in the White House? And Kamala did say, she's like, oh yeah, we'll see one within our lifetimes. I don't know how she can make that prediction, but whatever. And that was followed up by the question, well, could it be you? And Kamala sidestepped it, sort of, but didn't really, shoot it down either. So, yeah. Anyway, so, she was like, again, like I said, the BBC interview, Harris entertained the prospect of another run at the White House, saying that her grandnieces would, in their lifetime, for sure, see a female president. Yeah. Harris did say she has not yet made a decision, but underlined that she still sees herself as having a future in politics. She said, I am not done. I have lived my entire career as a life of service, and it's in my bones. Yeah, we should probably ask Montel Williams and Willie Brown about what kind of service you perform as a part of your lifetime of service. And I'm sure it's in her bones. Yeah. Anyway, responding to odds that place her as an outsider to win a place on the Democratic ticket, even behind Hollywood actor Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, she said she never listened to polls. Well, no kidding, you never listened to polls, because if you did listen to polls, you wouldn't have run in the first damn place, because nobody likes you. Oh my gosh, nobody likes you at all. And she goes, if I listened to polls, I would not have run for my first office or my second office, and I certainly wouldn't be sitting here. No, the only reason why you're sitting there is because, well, let's face it, the BBC probably needed some additional airtime or something. They just needed something to run. Because you sure as hell are not that entertaining. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Anyway, Harris also said that she believed predictions she made about Donald Trump behaving as a fascist and running an authoritarian government had come true. No. Anyway, he said he would weaponize the Department of Justice, and he has done exactly that. Well, yeah, he's weaponized it against criminals, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. The Department of Justice is supposed to be weaponized against criminals. Yeah. She pointed to the suspension of late-night comic Jimmy Kimmel by ABC after he made a joke about the Republican reaction to the death of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk, which, again, was outside of any kind of politics. That was well-deserved by Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel never should have been allowed back in, but anyway. She said that his removal from the airwaves, meaning Jimmy Kimmel's removal, was celebrated by Trump and came after the Trump-appointed regulator threatened Kimmel's broadcasters. That is actually incorrect. Like everything, she's got things backwards and wrong. It was just happened to be a timing thing. They were running in parallel to one another, and he just happened to be on a show where he said something. We all know, and we've seen now the proof and the evidence that no, it was actually ABC's affiliates who shut him down after his disgusting comments. Incorrect lies, outright lies about the Charlie Kirk murderer and where he came from in terms of his ideology. So anyway, yeah. She also slammed business leaders and institutions in America who have, in her view, too easily bowed to the president's demands. She said, quote, "There are many that have capitulated since day one who are bending the knee at the foot of a tyrant. I believe for many reasons, including they want to be the next to power because they want to perhaps have a merger approved or avoid an investigation." So in other words, she's saying there's a quid pro quo kind of thing going on here. Yeah. So the White House was asked about it. Spokeswoman Abigail Jackson said, when Kamala Harris lost the election in a landslide, she should have taken the hint. The American people don't care about her absurd lies. Well, this is the truth. Because let's just say clearly that if she were in the running for any kind of and let's be honest, being taken seriously by anybody in the American media over all of this, she wouldn't be on the BBC. Yeah. And they pointed that out. Abigail Jackson pointed that out. She goes, or maybe she did take the hint, and that's why she's continuing to air her grievances to foreign publications. Yeah. Yep. Oh, my gosh. So the full interview is supposed to be broadcast in the UK on Sunday at 5 a.m. Eastern time here. That'll be tomorrow morning, about the same time the wind advisory stops from my area. But anyway, she says, I pressed, the Laura person says, I pressed Harris several times on whether she ought to have urged Biden to make way for her sooner. Yeah. Yep. I'm sure. I'm sure you really pressed her. Yeah, I'm sure you really pressed her. Uh-huh. Yeah, she's like focusing on all kinds of it. But anyway, enough about that. And all right. Well, that being said, she was at the London book tour event. You know, why is she even over there, honestly? I mean, let's face it. She's over there because she's going to get better reception over there than she is over here. Is that kind of the purpose? I'm going to say yes, that probably is the purpose. So, anyway, apparently she was at this book tour event and she got even heckled. While she was over there. So she was interrupted several times by protesters at her book tour event in London. Within minutes of taking the stage at Southbank Centre to promote her memoir of 107 days, 3 separate demonstrators heckled her over the conflict in Gaza, Outside the venue, protesters gathered with Palestinian flags and a banner reading "Genocide enablers are war criminals," chanting "Kamala Harris not welcome here." Harris said that "I understand the passion and the emotion and the feeling based on everything that has happened in Gaza," reflecting on her time in the Biden regime and suggesting that her team could have taken alternative actions. "As I write in the book, we had levers we did not exercise," she admits. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway. The protests themselves reflect broader discontent with Harris's handling of the Israeli-Hamas conflict during her vice presidency. Many pro-Palestinian groups criticized the administration for continuing arms sales to Israel, and some withdrew support during the 2024 election campaign. These tensions have followed her on the 107 Days book tour, where she has faced similar protests in New York, Chicago, and even in Washington, D.C. So, yeah. Okay. So anyway. And by the way, just to reiterate once again, she ruled herself out for a run to be California's governor in 2026, which is why they have that stupid idiot that mistreats everybody. Although, I mean, let's face it, Kamala Harris mistreated everybody anyway. She was known as the Attorney General and wanted people of standing up, you know, whenever she entered the room to like come to attention like the military does. Anyway, and call her general because she was Attorney General, not a real general. In fact, she has no military experience whatsoever. But anyway, she still has not confirmed as to whether or not she will seek the presidency in 2028. Yeah, that ought to be fun. Oh, all right. Well, we haven't heard a lot about Adam Schiff and his case, his mortgage fraud case. And the Gateway Pundit has an article explaining a little bit why this is happening. So apparently there are some deep state prosecutors in Maryland that are actually defending Adam Schiff amid the investigation into his mortgage fraud. Democrat Senator Adam Schiff is under investigation for mortgage fraud, specifically occupancy fraud, because of the fact that he said that his home that is in Maryland, the house that he bought in Maryland many years ago when he was a congressman, was his primary residence, even though in order by law to be a representative from California, his California house has to be his primary residence. I don't know how you're going to get out of this. I really don't. I mean, if you claim that your primary residence is on the other side of the country from the state, that you have to be a resident. And in order to be a resident in a state generally, that means you've got to be living within that state for a minimum of 6 months. Just saying. Because I know, for an example, if I, as a regular average citizen, were to go and try and purchase a house, let's just say in Montana or something like that, I have to claim one of them as my primary residence. And in terms of which one it's going to be, it's which one I lived at the longest during the year. So if I plan on living in, let's say, Montana for 6 months out of the year, then that would be my primary residence. Yeah. So anyway, the Gateway Pundit, his Joe Hoff, was the first to report on the mortgage fraud back in April of 2023. So apparently the office, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland, was investigating Schiff for possible charges. But now it turns out that Adam Schiff apparently has a friend or two. And NBC is now reporting that the Department of Justice doesn't have a strong enough case against Adam Schiff. NBC News reported the federal mortgage fraud investigation into Democratic Senator Adam Schiff has stalled, according to 4 people familiar with the investigation. After months of investigating, federal prosecutors in Maryland leading the probe have not produced enough evidence to bring charges, these people said. One of the sources, who is a federal law enforcement official, said the investigation came to a standstill. Kelly Hayes, the U.S. attorney overseeing the investigation, met with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanke earlier this week and asked him how to proceed, according to 3 people with knowledge of the meeting. The decision out of that meeting was for Hayes to pursue more evidence, and the case remains ongoing, those people said. No final decision has been made. So per MSNBC's Ken Delanian, Kelly Hayes, the U.S. attorney in Maryland, met in recent days with Todd Blanke, the deputy attorney general, to update him on the Schiff case, and the 3 people said. Hayes, who is an experienced federal prosecutor, told Blanke she did not think the case against Schiff was strong. 2 people said. 2 also said Ed Martin, a controversial senior Justice Department official, is pressing to keep the case alive, according to Ken Delanian. So, yeah. Anyway, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanke responded to the latest leak and claimed the recent meeting with U.S. Attorney Hayes never actually happened. He posted on X, Delanian MSNBC reports on a recent meeting that never happened. Can you ask your 2 sources for more info? I'm genuinely curious. Excited to hear more about this made-up meeting. Also, unequivocally, U.S. Attorney Hayes has told me no such thing. So he, Todd Blanke, obviously denies it. So, yeah. Yeah, they're trying to lie to get it out, I guess. Anyway. Yeah, one can only hope. I'll be honest with you. I'm having a bit of a difficulty thinking that any of these Democrats are actually going to face the music. That's all I'm going to say. So, yeah. All right. Well, somewhere in CNN, they decided to trot out Geraldo Rivera. That's right. Geraldo Rivera is still hanging around. And, well, on tonight's Scott Jennings, where is it? Scott Jennings Truth Bomb. That's right, Scott Jennings Truth Bomb. Here it comes. Here is a truth bomb for Geraldo Rivera, talking about ICE and why they wear the masks. Take a listen.
Nobody wears masks, only ICE. Only ICE. And why is it? Because they are embarrassed by the job they have been tasked to do. And it's absolutely horrifying. Masks should be banned in law enforcement. What kind of world can we have where cops come into your door and they're masked?
Scott?
Counterpoint, the reason they're wearing masks, which, by the way, their director, Todd Lyons, he doesn't want them to have to wear masks. He's against the masks. The reason they're wearing them is because you have a dedicated group of people out there, and some of them, unfortunately, are Democrat political officials who are doxing them and their families and putting them in harm's way. They face 1,000% increase in violent attacks this year. These people are in harm's way every day, and they are protecting themselves and their families.
Why?
There it is. That's the reason. And, of course, the Democrats, they keep fighting against this whole idea. In fact, California recently passed a law, which I think is actually unenforceable, but they recently passed a law essentially saying that ICE agents and several other agents outside of the state patrol cannot wear masks in California. I hate to tell, and even Scott Wiener is one of the representatives in California. He's like standing up and saying, oh, no, state law trumps federal law. No, it doesn't. again, there's this thing known as the supremacy clause in the Constitution. It basically says that federal law trumps state law when in conflict with one another. And I honestly do not believe. Now, keep in mind, historically speaking, no state has ever attempted to arrest federal law enforcement officers in the entire history of our country. We are putting ourselves into uncharted territory here. And I have a feeling that if it were going to be put forth, because again, keep in mind, the whole idea of like a federal law enforcement officer doing something that is illegal in a Well, I don't know what the heck happened there, but that bounced pretty big. So anyway, as I was saying, I can't quite figure out how federal officers are not going to be able to do their jobs if it goes against the state. I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm not necessarily a lawyer, but I played one on TV once. No, I'm just kidding. I did stay at Holiday Inn Express. But I'm trying to comprehend and fully understand where we're getting this idea that state law trumps federal law, especially in the case of dealing with immigration law, which is immigration law is 100% backed by the courts, 100% in the federal government camp. States can't enforce it. They never have been able to. They can help, but they can't enforce immigration law. So I'm trying to figure out where they're getting this idea that, the state law saying no masks is going to cover up this entire thing. But I digress. All right. So, yeah. Let's see. And did I lose Facebook completely? I hope not. Nope, it's still playing audio. Okay, good. We're good. All right. Well, Geraldo Rivera apparently didn't consult with Lori Lightfoot when he said that, agents shouldn't be doing this and that they're not at any risk and so on and so forth, whatever it was that he said with regards to everything. Because, well, Lori Lightfoot, the former mayor of Chicago, that's right, Beetlejuice herself, she has launched the ICE Accountability Project, which is seeking to publicly identify federal agents. And you wonder why they want to wear masks. See, the problem here is not so much that they are getting identified. The problem is they are getting identified and being threatened and being shot at and having their families threatened and all of these other things that are going on. Now, the initiative run by Beetlejuice herself, there she is aimed at tracking agents from U.S. Customs and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection as part of the ongoing Operation Midway Blitz. In an interview with Fox 32 in Chicago, Lightfoot said that the organization will create a centralized archive of all purported criminal actions of ICE and CBP agents. I got a question for you. What kind of criminal actions do you think they're going to be held accountable for? If they're doing their jobs, again, like I said, they have a certain level of qualified immunity on a lot of stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, Lightfoot described the project as a transparency initiative that would allow the public to view alleged misconduct by federal officers in real time. She said, "We want to create a portal where what's happening real time can be centralized and put out for the public to view." The former mayor explained that the database would include physical descriptions and vehicle details of agents operating in the region. She said, "They are on public property out in the open. We have an absolute right under our Constitution to document what is happening." Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that the, ICE agents and CBP agents are completely absolved of any kind of wrongdoing whatsoever. I mean, we all know that if an ICE agent or a CBP agent does something that actually does break the law and isn't a part of their regular duties, that they, don't get that qualified immunity anymore. I mean, we've seen that multiple times. But that would be handled on a federal level, not necessarily a state level, because, again, this would be federal enforcement officers. Anyway. But it's stuff like this that becomes a bit of a problem. Now, she did deny that the project's purpose was to dox or endanger federal agents. But what in the hell do you think this kind of stuff is going to do? I mean, especially in this day and age when leftist lunatics are running around shooting at ICE agents, trying to kill them, like what happened in Dallas, and ending up killing or hurting illegal aliens in custody at that time. I mean, seriously, folks, why would you even necessarily encourage any of this? Why would you even announce something like this? Why would you even purport to have something like this in your possession or in your capabilities? I mean, straight up, why? This seems like it's a breach of operational security in a lot of cases. So anyway, and this piece, of course, which is in LifeSet, this piece does clarify federal law enforcement officers are protected by qualified immunity, which shields them from civil liability for actions performed as a part of their official duties unless they violate a clearly established constitutional right. Which, by the way, being an illegal alien, I'm sorry, but a lot of people are under the impression that the Constitution actually applies to anyone who is within this country's borders, and that is specifically and clearly not true, because the Constitution itself, throughout history, has been deemed to apply only to American citizens. Now, that being said, we've graciously extended a lot of the protections that are a part of the U.S. Constitution, such as the 4th, 5th, 6th Amendments, and those kinds of things. But the Second Amendment doesn't necessarily extend to a foreign national. Okay? You can't just go and, purchase a weapon without having some sort of a NICS background check. If you're a foreign national, you're not likely going to be getting a firearm in our country. So the Constitution does not apply necessarily to foreign nationals. It really doesn't. You would have to demonstrate that you are in some sort of a permanent residency arrangement or something along those lines here in the States. So, this whole idea here that the Constitution is this all-encompassing document that covers everybody that exists within our borders is not true. We even have the Hawaiian Islands as an example. There are a group of Hawaiians who live on a part of Hawaii that is still part of the state of Hawaii, but is considered to be sovereign land that the United States Constitution does not necessarily apply to those folks because they've decided to extirpate themselves from the United States. See, that's how this kind of thing works, folks. And in the history of the world, in the history of the United States, not all people living here were actually considered to be United States citizens. In fact, the Native American Indians were not even considered until modern times to be considered citizens of the United States. Now, some were taxed and had separate, dispensation in that case. But not everybody that comes here, that he lives here, is considered to be a United States citizen and has all the constitutional laws equally applied across the board. Just because of the mere fact that you're here on a green card means that you're living here, your existence here is by the grace of the federal government and ultimately the people. You don't seem to get it, folks. And this is, and I'm speaking specifically to the leftist lunatics that are out there, the Democrats who don't seem to understand the Constitution. It's citizens of the United States. We can't go to another country and go, hey, you know what? The Constitution applies here. It doesn't. Try, as an American citizen, going to, I don't know, let's say Russia, for an example, and trying to say that you have the freedom of speech over there, that you, here, even better yet, I visited China in my travels. And over in China, when I was there, they basically told you, yes, be very well aware of what you are saying and who you are talking to. They don't have free speech necessarily over there. And if I tried to claim free speech and said something that the regime didn't like and I ended up getting taken into custody, guess what? I don't have Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment protections over there. Because the United States Constitution, while it does apply to me as a United States citizen when I'm within the borders of the United States, doesn't apply to me if I'm in somebody else's territory or country. So again, there are restrictions as to where the U.S. Constitution is actually taken into place. Now, all of that being said, by the graciousness of our belief system, principles, and values, if you break the law here in the United States, we do believe that all people should be afforded the right to remain silent, the right to be secure in our papers and our person. But believe me, you go someplace else, man, all those bets are off. You no longer have that kind of coverage. So, yeah, there is no idea that the U.S. Constitution covers everybody everywhere at any given point in time. Same thing with somebody coming here. We extend it by the goodness and graciousness of our own belief system and principles and values system, that all men are created equal, that they are all endowed by their creator, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because of our principles and values system, that's why we extend that to people of other countries when they come here. But that isn't necessarily the truth. We're doing it by the grace of our own individual desire to do that. But believe me, it doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist. So, anyway, we'll just have to see where all of this comes from. But anyway. All right. Well, there may be a movement afoot. That's right, to end the shutdown. But we'll get to that in just a minute. First, let's talk about Rumble Premium. You've probably noticed that Rumble is growing fast, and it's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you came for. Plus, Premium members also unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium. And for those of you that don't know, that / is the question mark key on your keyboard. Rumble.com/premium and use their promo code STUDIO at checkout. That's STUDIO is the promo code. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO, STUDIO, STUDIO as the promo code. And you will get that $10 off that annual subscription when you order today. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO to get $10 off the annual subscription to Rumble Premium. All right. So there may be an end in sight. I kind of kid. Who's really kidding? Let's be honest. The Democrat and lunatics in the Senate are just going to hold their freaking spaces, no matter what happens with SNAP, no matter what happens with, government pay, all of that other stuff. I got a couple things on that here in a minute. But Fetterman and McCormick, both senators from Pennsylvania, have decided to join forces in an attempt to push to reopen the government as the SNAP benefits and everything else are going to hit Pennsylvania. John Fetterman and Dave McCormick, Fetterman's a Democrat, McCormick is a Republican. They appeared together in Washington, D.C. this past Thursday, calling for an end to the government shutdown. They were emphasizing its growing impact on Pennsylvania families, workers, and federal employees. In a joint video that was posted to social media, Pennsylvania's 2 U.S. senators urged colleagues in both parties to prioritize reopening the federal government as the shutdown entered its 23rd day. The message marks a rare moment of bipartisan unity between Fetterman, who is a Democrat known for breaking with his party on several recent votes, and McCormick, a first-term Republican elected in 2024. Now, let's see if I can bring up the video here, and we can maybe take a listen to what McCormick and Fetterman actually have to say about this whole thing. Let's take a listen.
Here we are in Washington, D.C., and it is shut down. But now here, it's both Pennsylvania's voice here in the U.S. Senate, even though we are in a different party. And we both want to talk about why we believe it's so important to reopen this government.
23 days, 12 votes. Senator Fetterman and I have both voted to open up the government. We agree on that 100%. It's really starting to hurt Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvanians, air traffic controllers, border patrol, and also 2 million recipients of SNAP. We've got to get the government open. That's our main responsibility. And I'd say that regardless of what party's in the majority.
So I think we both, our votes are about country over party at this point. Now we have 2 million Pennsylvanians that rely on SNAP. That's going to stop. And now you can now reopen this government and have an earnest conversation about extending those tax credits. We know we're going to participate in this process. That's why we both vote to open up our government. We're in a different party. We're on the same team for Pennsylvania and our nation.
Pennsylvanians expect it. Pennsylvanians deserve it.
Wow. Well, and John Fetterman, honestly, is like one of my Whiskey Warrior P1s pointed out, is doing the right thing. He actually is. Believe it or not, that's what an older style Democrat actually was about. We disagreed. Democrats and Republicans would often disagree about how to get there, but they would, in general, agree on the fact that they needed to work for the people, because again, this is a government for the people, by the people, and of the people. And it is a republic, not a democracy. And Democrats used to know that before the lunatic left radicals of their party took it over. Well, it's not just Pennsylvanians that are going to get hit with this SNAP stuff. I mean, we've talked about it a couple nights ago. I think it was either maybe last night or the night before. We talked about it. Governor Glenn Youngkin has declared now a state of emergency over the Democrat shutdown that is threatening the SNAP benefits. Now, let's be clear. This is not a Republican shutdown. Every single Republican in both houses has voted to open up, well, I won't say every single one because Rand Paul obviously doesn't like any kind of continuing resolution whatsoever. But then again, we really can't say whether or not Rand Paul is actually really a Republican. But anyway, as I was saying, just about every Republican has voted to open up the government, including, as you just heard, a couple Democrats. But Glenn Youngkin decided to declare a state of emergency, citing the impending funding shortfall caused by what is actually realistically the Democrat shutdown, which he said could deplete the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits for more than 850,000 Virginians and the 2 million that are in Pennsylvania and many others across the entire country. Now, all of this, of course, is potentially going to start November 1st of 2025, which is coming up, folks. That's just next week. That's coming up at the end of next week. So now, the Democrat shutdown is potentially going to cause SNAP benefits to run out on November 25th. November 1st of 2025. Sorry, I misspoke there. Youngkin said this is an extraordinary action, meaning the state of emergency. This is an extraordinary action and is only necessary because of the shamelessness of congressional Democrats. He actually needs to bring that even tighter. It's the Senate Democrats. Because the House Democrats don't count. They honestly are in the minority in the House, the real minority in the House, and they did their jobs. The House of Representatives has done their job. And that's why they went home. They've done their job. They don't need to do any more. They passed a continuing resolution. The next thing that they need to do is, if the Senate pulls their heads out of their asses and gets the CR passed, or gets a bill passed that is similar to, but not exactly like the one that the House does, then it has to go back to the House for the House to reconcile it. That's the way it is. Anyway, yeah, he's declaring an emergency. And he's also blaming every Democrat in their entire delegation. Now, I agree with that. You can blame all of the Democrats because, let's face it, hardly any of them voted for it. But that being said, this is squarely on Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats, because the House has already done their job. They're done and over with. They don't need to get brought back in until the Senate gets off their freaking ass and does the right thing and reopens government. So what this emergency declaration does is it allows the Virginia state government to use state-level emergency funds to continue providing food benefits until federal funding resumes. Youngkin said that the state would not allow families to go without support due to what he described as political gridlock in Washington. He says the state of emergency enables us to ensure continuity of essential nutrition programs. We will continue providing food benefits to qualified Virginians unless congressional Democrats put the interests of Virginians in need ahead of their politics. Now, I'm just going to point this out. I'm going to point this out, folks. And this is the truth. If our government, meaning the federal government, was run the way the Constitution was written, meaning that something like this has nothing to do with the federal government's purview in accordance with the Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 lists 18 specific items that has never been changed or amended. 18 specific items that are specifically the purview of the federal government. SNAP, benefits, and assistance, food assistance, period. Not just SNAP, but food assistance, period. Has nothing to do with the federal government. The idea that the federal government should be responsible for the individual people is antithetical to the actual purpose that the federal government was created for. And you can look up Federalist 14, Federalist 41, Federalist 45, where James Madison, who is considered to be the father of the Constitution, the author, the primary author of the Constitution, he explains very succinctly that there are specific enumerated responsibilities that the federal government has. Healthcare, food assistance, anything like that is not. And he also states in one of those papers, he clearly states and says, hey, the states are supposed to handle the day-to-day governance of the American people, that the federal government is not supposed to get involved in the day-to-day operations and governance of the American people. See, folks, if our country had worked properly, these things like government shutdowns like this, they wouldn't necessarily affect us in terms of our day-to-day lives. They really wouldn't. They might affect, they might affect the army or whatever, but also, too, keep in mind that these kinds of arguments that you have between the two political parties, they probably wouldn't happen. Oh, and by the way, the idea of whether or not a person in government, whether it was in Congress or the president or anything else, getting rich on anything that the federal government does, yeah, that wouldn't happen either. See, all of the grift and all of the corruption and everything else would be down at the state level. The federal government, having so minimal things to do, would not even be a part of this entire prescription and organization. So, yeah. Anyway. We'll just have to see. All right. Well, while all of this stuff is going on, we are approaching November, and we are quickly approaching an election cycle. Now, this is an off-year election cycle. Most people don't seem to understand that elections do happen every single year. Not every single state or not every single municipality actually has, things that need to get voted on outside of a presidential election. Then the presidential elections are obviously the most, shall we say, publicized of all of the elections that occur. But every single year around November, there are some elections across the entire country. And in this particular case, there are 6 states that are deciding on some things that may influence and affect the entire country. And these are key ballot measures that are within the state itself that can and probably will affect the nation and how the nation is actually run. Top of the list, of course, number 1 is the California Proposition 50. There are several people who have already voted in it, and I've seen them on social media. Many people are saying vote no. Some, though, who are brave enough to post their idiot selves in videos or pictures or whatever are saying, yeah, I'm voting on Prop 50. I'm voting yes. Because let's be honest, we got to rein in Trump. When it's not actually Trump that you need to rein in, because voting yes on Prop 50, folks, goes against the California state constitution. Voting yes on Prop 50 goes against the voters' desire to have independent committees to do the redistricting. Rather, voting yes on Prop 50 ignores the California state constitution, which basically says that you can't redistrict outside of the years that the census is done. So, in other words, every 10 years. It also eliminates they claim for a temporary time, but let's face it, how often is something that is supposedly temporary ever kept temporary? But the second piece out of all of this, of course, is the fact that under a new map for California, which would be the map for elections all the way through 2030. So that map would replace the one that was created under the voter approved Independent Citizens Commission back in 2021. So again, you're going against yourselves here, folks. And under the new map, 5 Republican-held districts would supposedly shift toward Democrats, based on the results of the 2024 presidential election. Now, this change and this attempt is seen because of the fact that Texas, who was told by the courts that they had to redistrict in the way that they did, because the Biden administration sued them under the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, that particular provision is up for SCOTUS ruling in June, I believe. Or, yeah, maybe it's the end of June, or at the end of this session. I think it's in June or whatever. But anyway, the point being that I'm making, though, is that Proposition 50, if they go in the way of the yes on Proposition 50, you could potentially have a quote-unquote shift in the balance of power. Not that it really matters much, because let's face it, the California map as well as Illinois maps have already been like gerrymandered like crazy for the Democrats. But anyway, yeah, he's hoping. The California governor, Newsom, is hoping that it passes so that he can, quote-unquote, stick it to Trump. Maine. This one I did not necessarily pay attention to, but Maine actually has 2 ballot initiatives right now. One of them is that voters get to decide on whether or not you have to present photo identification for both in-person and absentee voting. So they have this voter ID law that's up for this November. And they have a second question. Maine does have a yellow flag gun law, but they are going to be asked if they want to be replacing that with a red flag law. Now, under the existing system, the yellow flag law, police must first take a potentially dangerous individual into protective custody for evaluation before petitioning the court to suspend their gun license and remove their weapons. Now, folks, I don't know if you know this, but many red flag laws are like before due process even happens. Many red flag laws across the United States are such that all it takes is for somebody to say that they fear, because this person is mentally unstable and has guns. No proof whatsoever. Just the mere suggestion is enough for the police to go in and take away your right, your Second Amendment right, to keep and bear arms. And that's exactly what's happening here, because this proposed red flag law has fewer steps in the middle. It allows relatives and roommates to petition courts directly for emergency gun removal orders. Now, the main Democrat Party is calling on voters to reject the voter ID, no surprise there, which it claims is a threat to the elderly, the disabled, and to rural residents, and to support the red flag law. Yeah. Texas has a vote on the ballot to decide whether or not to amend the state constitution to explicitly ban all non-citizens from voting. The measure itself, Proposition 16, would add the phrase persons who are not citizens of the United States to a list of those who are ineligible to vote in Texas elections. Now, keep in mind, this is state elections. This is not federal elections. Federal elections, supposedly, even though we know it doesn't happen, but supposedly is not supposed to allow non-citizens to vote. Now, the state law already exists, apparently, to restrict voting in to U.S. citizens. But supporters of the amendment say enshrining the rule in the state constitution would better safeguard the rule from being revoked, which is true. And also, considering that any future change would need a 2/3 majority vote in the legislature and subsequent voter approval under another constitutional amendment. So they're basically looking to constitutionally enshrine the fact that you have to be a citizen in order to vote in the state of Texas. I support that. Let's see. These next three are sort of Colorado has a school meals program funding. The Colorado lawmakers have put a pair of propositions on the ballot to maintain funding for the state's Healthy School Meals for All program, which offers free breakfast and lunch to all students in districts that opt in. Lawmakers funded the program through 2025, but will scale it back if voters reject either proposition. If the measures fail, meals will still be for free for more than 1,800 schools participating in the federal Community Eligibility Provision Program. Again, folks, and not that I'm being a real jerk on all of this, but that's not what our federal government is supposed to be doing, folks. That's not what our federal government is supposed to be doing. Okay? That's just not it. You can't, you really shouldn't be doing this at all. Honestly. Anyway. New York has a provision on the ballot for state land use. Voters are considering a proposition or a proposal to retroactively authorize the Olympic Sports Complex in Lake Placid, which hosted both the 1932 and 1980 Winter Games, on state Forest Preserve land. Those in New York City will see several extra ballot questions primarily related to the city's affordable housing initiatives. So yeah, there you go. And here in my home state in Washington, we have a choice of whether or not we want to use our state forced upon us long-term care funds that we pay for through our state taxes. See, now this is something, I know that this is not the federal government's responsibility, but I actually think that something like this isn't really state responsibility either. I mean, really? Anyway. Washington will have a final say on whether or not to allow the state to use the money that has been invested in what's called the Washington Cares Fund, which is our long-term care insurance program, state-mandated long-term care insurance program funded by payroll tax in stocks and other higher yield assets. So in other words, whether or not those funds that we're putting away, that we're being forced by our state taxes to put away, whether or not it can be used to play in the stock market. Anyway, you might get lucky and you might not. I mean, we might end up with an overabundance if it's invested correctly, or we might end up losing it all if it's not invested correctly. Yeah, honestly, I don't know which way to go, because I frankly think that this whole long-term care idea thing is, in the state of Washington, is not the government's business. That's not their responsibility to take care of me, just like I don't think that Social Security is something that necessarily should be a federal responsibility. But hey, at least it's on the state level, so I can at least go with that. All right. Biggest ones obviously are going to be California. That's going to be a huge one. And then, of course, Maine, voter ID, and so on and so forth. So anyway, well, I don't know if anybody caught this. Oh, and actually, you know what? Before I go and move on to that, let me go ahead and do this other spot real quick. So did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is not something that's talked about often, which is basically our increased longevity in America means the default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not be enough. If you have over $100,000 in your retirement account, you need to get free access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Text SAFE, S-A-F-E, to the number 35052 today to get that free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals that singular step that you can take to secure your financial freedom. Once again, text SAFE, S-A-F-E, to the number 35052 today and get that free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals. That's SAFE, S-A-F-E, texted to the number 35052 from Augusta Precious Metals. All right. So I don't know if anybody heard this, but apparently there was an anonymous billionaire who decided to pay $130 million for our servicemen's salaries. And I say servicemen, but I also mean servicewomen. So despite the government shutdown, the Democrat government shutdown, the troops will be receiving a paycheck thanks to an anonymous but extremely generous billionaire. So Donald Trump identified the mystery man only as a friend of mine who did not wish to receive recognition for his actions. The $130 million donation will allow the military to keep paying bills amidst the Schumer shutdown. Unlike the leech Democratic congressman who will continue to be wealthy regardless of how long they drag out the shutdown, our military is putting everything on the line for the paychecks, which could not come without the billionaire's generosity. So he described his conversation with the anonymous donor. He called us the other day and said, I'd like to contribute any shortfall you have because of the Democrat shutdown, because I love the military and I love the country. So there you go. And by the way, just to correcting the record here, the Democrats did shoot down a bill that would have funded the military, even though the shutdown was there. Well, the Democrats are pissed. That's right. They're pissed about this because of the fact that, let's see. They're actually pissed. I should say they're actually pissed about that. They're pissed about the donor list for the ballroom project. They're just pissed because now apparently the White House has released this donor list for the $300 million ballroom project, which includes tech giants, defense contractors, and other billionaires. They're all funding the 90,000 square foot addition to the East Wing, which is pissing the Democrats off because the Democrats can't go and stop the funding for it because it's all donations. So the Democrats in Congress, their hands are tied. They can't do anything about it. So many people think. Because Hakeem Jeffries, Timu Obama, or I don't know many other things that are talking about. He actually issued a warning to anyone who is behind Trump's White House ballroom. He actually said that he is going to investigate this. Now, folks, I mean, seriously, come on. Who in their right frickin' mind would sit here and go, you know what? I'm so pissed off at the fact that I have zero power that I'm just going to go and investigate all these different people to go ahead and do all of this. I'm just going to start investigating. And you think that the Trump administration is weaponizing the justice system? No. So, yeah. Hakeem Jeffries. Here he is, in his own words. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
More likely, this is part of what Donald Trump has been doing since day one of his presidency, running the largest pay-to-play scheme in the history of the country, and probably soliciting donations from people who've got business before the United States government. And all of this is going to have to be investigated. It will. All of this will have to be uncovered. It will. And these people are going to be held accountable, no matter how long it takes. That's going to be the reality of the situation. And that's our warning to all of these people participating in this scheming to manipulate taxpayer dollars and, of course, to destroy the people's house. The White House belongs to the American people. It doesn't belong to Donald Trump.
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, number one, it's not the White House that's being destroyed here. It's the East Wing. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as I've pointed out in the past, the White House in and of itself has undergone many renovations. It pretty much happens just about every single time that a new president comes into the White House. This is nothing unusual. This is nothing new. And third, he talks about pay to play. Oh, I seem to recall Biden as the vice president. Yeah, he did pay to play. And it's been proven multiple times over by his own son's laptop, which nobody freaking believed in, even though it was true. Yeah, okay. Pay to play. Pay to play. Not like, Mendez or whatever his freaking name is. Yeah, that guy. He's a Democrat. Now, he's sitting there, of course, and claiming without any evidence that the donors are probably using the donations to curry favor with the Trump administration. Yeah. No evidence whatsoever. No evidence that he's claimed right now. And by the way, I also want to point out that Hillary Clinton stole $28,000 worth of items from the White House when she left. And the ballroom, to be honest with you, isn't leaving. Yeah. The only part of the White House that actually was being destroyed was the overhang on the East Wing. So it's not even like the full White House. It's just a part of the outside exterior, folks. God, these people are just so stupid. And just to give you an idea, some of the donors that were listed according to the White House list that was provided to the Epoch Times: Amazon, Apple, Google, Caterpillar Inc., HP, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Microsoft, Palantir Technologies, and the Union Pacific Railroad. I seem to recall, let's see, Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, Microsoft. That's 5 that are Democrat donors. Hello? They're Democrats. So you're gonna go after Democrat donors, like mega donors? You're going to go after those folks. Yeah, I don't see it there, dime store Obama. I don't see it happening. What the hell? God, He's such an idiot. They all are. They all are idiots. Well, speaking about that, California apparently has decided that, yep, Democrat donors, by the way, most billionaires, the vast majority of billionaires, just so you know, the vast majority of billionaires will support Democrats. Just saying. And that being said, California, and this is talk about biting the hand that feeds you. California is going to push for a billionaire wealth tax. And that particular wealth tax is aimed at reportedly 180 people. Yeah. That's going to make that state totally unlivable. Just like Zoran Mamdani doing the crap that he's going to be doing in New York City. I'm going to tell you, New York and California, they are essentially shooting themselves in the foot here, people. They really are. And these are Democrat policies. So anyway, apparently the 2026 Billionaire Tax Act, which was received by the California Attorney General on Thursday, will use one-time funds to supposedly plug holes in the state's healthcare system caused by reductions in federal funding enabled by the One Big Beautiful Bill legislation. Some 10% of the funds will be used to support public K-12 education. UC Berkeley economics professor Emmanuel Saez, law professor Brian Golly, and Stanford law professor Darian Shansky were involved in drafting the proposal. So what is going to be the case here? And by the way, because it impacts so few people, which, okay, I'm just going to throw this out there. There are so many Democrat, liberal, leftist lunatics who seem to believe that if you tax the billionaires, that it's not going to hurt the other people. See, people don't seem to understand this. Billionaires invest their money to make more money. They take their resources, which is money, and invest it in startup companies, in the stock market, in all of these wonderful engines that create the jobs in these companies. Because if a company doesn't have investment capital, it's likely not going to be able to hire the underlings, the workers of the days. Okay? The people who work in the factories, who work in the salt mines, as you will. See, these morons seem to think that, hey, if we take away the billionaires all of their extra money, we're just going to be helping out the lower people. Folks, you're not. What's driving the American economy is the small businesses. Small businesses, medium-sized businesses, most of them do not have the same type of capital as some of the larger businesses do. And believe it or not, a lot of these billionaires will actually invest in medium to small businesses or invest in capitalist funds to fund these kinds of things. Yeah. Anyway, organizers say that this particular tax will affect only about 200 Californians, the wealthiest 0.0005% of those residents. And it's supposedly going to stabilize hospitals, community clinics, long-term care facilities, and K-12 schools threatened by federal reductions. I guarantee you this is not going to go over very well, because you know what happens when a billionaire starts getting targeted in a particular state? Let's see. Let's take for an example, Donald Trump, who lived in New York at one point. Where did he go? He moved to Florida. What do you think is going to happen to these 180 or 200 people that this is targeting? Yeah. Now, under this plan, the Franchise Tax Board is supposed to require all California residents to declare their total net worth. So this is actually a wealth tax, not an income tax. including interests in private companies, real estate, art, and intellectual property. The tax could be paid in full or spread over 5 years with interests, with steep penalties for underreporting. Now, notice that list. Interests in private companies. Gee, I wonder what that is. That's called equity stakeholding. That's called investment. Real estate. Oh my gosh, that's another investment. Yeah. These people, they are so stupid. Oh my God. They're gonna destroy their state. They're gonna destroy their state with the idea that they're gonna be trying to make it better. And it ain't happening, folks. But don't worry. It's just billionaires that are affected. Just billionaires. It's not going to affect the little people. Sure. What happens when those people leave California and they can no longer... California has to start taxing other people to backfill for the stuff that they are going to lose when those people leave. It's just simple as that. Anyway. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search for the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give the thumbs up, thumbs down, or if you're 3 Chevy, the thumb sideways across all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night. No, we won't see you tomorrow night. We'll see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Good night, everybody.